from cost consultancy background. He has worked on so many projects that I cannot count on fingers, definitely. So he has worked upon more than 100 projects, which he can remember, right? So, and he's a guy who is coming from a background of working in different countries, like take it UAE, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and USA projects. So that is kind of a guy we have today with us. So I really want you guys to make use of this opportunity to interact with this industry leader. To whatever doubts you have, please feel free to post it in the comment section, and please, please remind me if I forget you to ask that question to Mr. Amar, right? So with that said, guys, let's get started. So even I'm excited for this because even I'm getting a chance to learn different things. To be frank, my goal is to get a good job in management. That's my goal. So that is one of the pillars is cost, right? So that's why I wanted to learn about this cost consulting, to be frank, from the industry leader from like Mr. Ammar Baik. So without further ado, I want to welcome Mr. Ammar Baik on the call and let him start the presentation. Yes, guys, please show some enthusiasm for Mr. Ammar Baik. Please let him know that we are excited to learn this. If yes, then please say yes in the chat box so that he can know that we have a good audience with us. Please say yes in the chat box. Perfect. So, Mr. Ammar Baik, you can start it. I think you have to unmute yourself.
Yeah. Perfect. Yeah. Hi, Samir. Hello, everyone. Am I audible or no?
Yes, you are audible. Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. First of all, thanks, Samir, for the introduction, and good evening, everybody. Hope you are staying safe. So without wasting time, we will move to our presentation today. Samir, can you allow me for sharing my screen?
Sorry. Yes, now you can do that.
Okay. Okay, so basically today's structure for the presentation will be like this. We will be discussing about the MEP cost planning, different types of systems within the buildings, MEP systems. Then we will learn about the various pre-contract stages, which is basically a consultant scope. We will discuss about the various types of cost estimates. Then we will discuss about the contractor's estimation process. Then we will discuss about some of the risk associated with the construction process, and we will try to discuss some of the techniques how to reduce those risks. Okay. So before moving, anybody can have any idea about the cost planning in construction industry? You can post the answer in the chat box. You can post the answers.
I think, Mr. Ammar, we have mixed audience here. We have people who are coming from college directly, and also we have like rich experience guys, maybe 19, because I saw a number of 19 years experience guy. So we have mixed audience.
Okay, no problem. So what is cost planning? Basically, cost planning is it's like to identify the cost of the project. It's a method, or we can say to allocate the budget of the different elements within the buildings. Okay. So what do you mean by the various elements of the building? Various elements of the building means if it's a building, there will be substructures, there will be superstructure, there will be mechanical services, electrical services. These are the elements of the building, and we have to allocate the cost to these elements over the different stages of the project. So the complete process is known as the cost planning. So what are the objectives of the cost plan? So we have basically four objectives for the cost plan. The most important is this one, the design process, efficient design process. Okay, when we do the cost plan, we have the budget from the client, okay, and the design should be like this. It should be an efficient design, and it should not exceed the client's budget. Okay, so we have to make the cost plan in that way. It should not exceed the client budget. Another objective is obviously to find out the cost of the building, and as we discuss here, it should be efficient, and we have to be within the budget of the client. We have to make the cost plan which should be in the budget of the client. And obviously, if the design is there, efficient design is there, obviously there will be the value for the money for the client. This is the stage where, you know, we can do some value engineering. There should be design changes. We have to discuss with the designers so that they can provide the best design to the client, which is under the budget. Okay, so we have different MEP systems in the construction, which is basically divided into two sections, mechanical and electrical. Mechanical is further divided into HVAC, plumbing, and fire. HVAC generally consists of those who are experienced, they know it, there will be ducting and equipments, chill water pipes, fan coil units, fans. All this will be covering in the HVAC system, which is like heating, ventilation, air conditioning. And the plumbing will be consisting of water supply system, drainage systems. The pipings will be there, or stormwater systems, pumps, submersible pumps, water supply pumps, booster pumps, like this. It will be covering here in the plumbing section. The third section is the fire, which is a very important component of a building. It is like a life protection system, and it will be covering like fire pumps, the sprinklers, the valves, and different specialist systems like NOVEC systems and FM200 systems and all these. Apart from these, there are specialist systems like BMS. Sometimes it's also covering here in electrical, but sometimes it's there in the HVAC section. Electrical generally consists of the high current, and we have low current. High current generally consists of like MV switch gears, panel boards, cables, and cable trays, lighting system, bus bar, generators, transformers, and different equipments. It will be covering here. And the low current generally consists of the fire alarm system, or CCTV, or public address, or access control system. So these are the basic mechanical and electrical systems of the MEP. Apart from these systems, there could be a specialist system like swimming pools. There could be fuel oil systems for the generators here. So these are the specialist systems. Okay, so the pre-contract stages in the construction. So we have got one RIBA plan of 2020. RIBA is Royal Institute of British Architecture. They have provided these 8 stages. The whole construction project is divided into these 8 stages, right from the strategic definition, from 0 stage till the use of the building. Because since we are discussing today the cost planning is generally associated with these 3 stages, the stage 2, the stage 3, and stage 4. So we will be having 3 stages where we have to perform main cost planning for the project. The first is the concept design. We have schematic design and detail or technical design. So concept design generally consists of a very basic design from the design consultant. Once the client has approved the briefing, and they have agreed that the project should be proceed. Based on that, there will be a concept design from the designer, and at that time we have to, and this stage, especially in 0 and 1, the client will be giving the budget, their budget, okay? And based on that, we have to make a cost plan for them. Then in stage 3, there will be some schematic design or more design will be available. Then they have to make the cost plan here, and then we have to make another cost plan here in the technical design. So based on these 3, we will be having different types of cost estimates. So we have got conceptual estimates, we have got preliminary estimates, and we have got detailed estimates. So as we discuss the conceptual estimates, there will be very limited information will be available from the designer, and you have to price budgetary based on the elemental cost plan or something, or based on the historical data, whatever you have. So we have to make a cost plan based on that. Then in the next stage, once you submit this one to the client, and after some time this one is approved, and you will be moving to the more preliminary estimates, which is like a schematic design, and the design will be like 30 to 40% design will be available. So you have to update the cost plan, this cost plan, which one you have already done, you have to update, and based on the 30 to 40% total design, you have to update your cost plan. After that, maybe sometimes there will be more detailed final design will be available, or technical design, and the BOQ will be available here. So you have to update these cost plans into this. You have to convert this, and these the estimate or the cost plan here in this section will be like a pre-tender estimate, because after that you have to move towards the tender stage, and the contractor will be pricing. Okay, so this is the stage where the pre-tender estimate should be done, and it should be submitted to the client. And we all know that all estimates are approximations, and it's based on your judgment and your experience. You have to be more accurate. Okay, those part good for the from the consultant side. When you move to the contractor's pricing process, you know, the once pre-tender estimate is completed and it's approved by the client, you have to float the tenders in the market to get the contractor's price for the construction work. So you know, the estimation process generally you know, find out the cost required to complete the construction work, and there are some documents required from the contractor side to start the tendering. The basic documents required will be project drawings and schedules, the specifications, and the bill of quantity. These are the basic three documents will be required from the client or from the consultant to start the contractor's pricing. So once you start the estimation work from the contractor's point of view, first the management have to decide whether to, you know, proceed for the tender or not. So they have some criteria based on this. For example, it's a contractor's current workload. They have to check what type of workload currently they have, how many projects currently they are executing, whether they can, if they got the project, whether they can proceed with them. So they have to check the current workload to decide to go for the tender or not. They have to look after this also. It's the future commitments of the contractor, and they have to check the current estimation workload. You know, sometimes in some companies they have very limited resources or very limited estimation engineers to perform the estimation work for the pricing. So they have to look whether they can perform the tender or not. But sometimes, you know, some projects are very iconic, and every contractors, you know, they wanted to be associated with those projects. Like for example, currently in Dubai, like Expo 2020 going on, or Burj Khalifa. So every day, these are the iconic projects. Once you did that project, you know, you will be become famous. You know, you have done this project, and it will increase your profile, project profile. So based on this, they have to, management have to decide whether to go for the tender or not. Once the tender, the management have decided to go for the tender, they have to collect the data and information to price that project. What are the data? These are the data. They have to check, examine the contract documents, whether the contract documents are completed or no, and they have to send the inquiries to the suppliers and subcontractors, you know, to get the prices, and they have to give the time scale, return time also. Okay, and they have to establish the time scale for the tendering and key dates within the estimation department. They have to set the time scale because they will be receiving too many inquiries from the client for different projects. So they have to set the times and key dates so that they can complete the tender. And then they have to do the small site visit to check the, you know, site conditions and locality, to analyze the project site conditions. Okay, so once you start the pricing for the project, what are the items to be included in the rate for any material? So we have got three types: material, labor, and plant. Generally, we have these three things which has to be included within the unit rate of any item. Okay. Material means the direct cost or the material prices from the market, from the supplier, they can get it. Labor means the manpower required to install this material, like man hours required or the total cost required to install this. And the plant means the machinery or equipment which required to install these things. And after that, you have to include the overheads. Overheads can be divided into two things, site overhead and general overhead. So site overhead generally including the site staff salaries, utility charges, quota cabin, office equipments, company vehicles, signboards. So these are the general things they have to include the price for this one. These are directly associated to the site. You can make some Excel sheet for that, and you can count how many things required for the site. Then these are generally related to head office, the general overheads, which are related to rent for the head office, salaries for the directors or key staff, office equipment, stationery, cars, telephone, price and cost for this to include in the unit rates. And after that, you have to include the profit. The profit generally, varies different to different companies. Sometimes some companies they are doing like 5%. Some company they are doing like 10% profit they are doing, but that depends upon the management decision. Okay. So this is a sample type of BOQ template. Those who are freshers, they can see from here. This is the template of, for example, this is an item FCU. This is fan coil unit. And we have got the quantity 10 numbers here, quantity, then unit price. Then how this unit price is coming? It's coming like, as we discussed, we have material, we have labor, plant, and overhead. So we have to include everything here. This is like, for example, the unit is $1. So $1,000 will be required to purchase this fan coil unit from the market. Then you have to add some VAT. If you have any tax in your country, you have to include. In Saudi Arabia, it's 15% currently. Maybe in Dubai, I think it's 5%, or it could be vary from country to country. Then you have to include the accessories related to fan coil unit. Accessories could be like connecting, valves or connecting pipes or any accessories required based on your drawings or hookup valve something. You can include it here. So it will become total material. Once you add those three, you will get the total material. Now you have to calculate the labor to install these fan coil units. Maybe you will require like 18 man hours. Okay, and for 18 man hours, you will be charging like $45. And I'm including like 3 persons here. Maybe as per your calculation, maybe you will require like 2 persons or 4 persons, whatever you have to check with your site engineers or project managers, the productivity to install those equipment, and then you can include it here. And the labor will be this time this. Okay, this is the rate and this is the hours. You multiply this, you will get the 810 for the labor price. Then plant, you have to include the plant cost. Maybe some equipments or sometimes cranes required to install this. If it's a high ceiling or something, you have to include some related plant cost of sometimes you have the piping or something. Sometimes welding is required for a special pipe, so you can include welding machines and whatever related plants is there, you have to include it here. You can include it. Then we have the overhead, profit, and contingency. So site overhead, as we discussed, you have to calculate. You have to make your Excel sheet or whatever you have. You have to calculate the total cost, and you can include it here as a percentage. Okay, like here you can give like 15%, then 5% I'm taking overhead, general overhead. Then you have to include some profit, 10% I'm taking here. Then you have to include the risk, 5%. We will discuss it later in the next slides about the risk and contingency. And the total will become like 35%. Okay, you can include based on your calculation. You have to adjust this percentage based on the project to project. You can include this as a total also. You can divide. No need to add every time item as item, but you can include as a total also, dividing by all the items. Now, we have risk and contingency. Every project, as we know, is associated with some types of risk. There is no project we don't have the risk. Every time we have to include the risk. We have to identify the risk in every project. Okay. We have few risks associated with the project. These are the risks. We have to identify. Some of the risks are time of the year. You know, in some countries, especially in GCC countries, we have extreme summers. Maybe in US or Europe, you will be having extreme winters. So you have to identify if your project falls within that period of extreme winter or summer. You have to be cautious to include some percentage at that time. Might be the productivity will be low, so you have to take care of this. Type of construction. There are sometimes, you know, the design innovative building is there. The contractor is not familiar to execute those projects, so you have to be very cautious at that time, and you have to be alert, and you have to include some risk to cover this thing. Then the type of tender, you know, the fixed price tenders, or you can say it's a lump sum type tenders. It's a risky for contractor. From the consultant side, it's safe, but from the contractor side, a lump sum contract sometimes is risky because they have to complete the project within that agreed amount. So you have to check the tender documents, everything is included or not. If something is doubtful, you can cover those in the risk percentage. And the location of the project. You know, sometimes if you are working in the remote location, you will be require some transportation. You know, it is difficult to commute to those sites. So for that, you have to consider the things, and you have to include some percentage or some amount to cover these risk location of the project. Now, how to reduce these risks? No, you have to be focus on your weakness and your strength. You know, when you are working as a team, generally estimation department working in a team, someone is more experienced in electrical, someone is more experienced in mechanical. So try to be, you know, into that thing that mechanical person should do mechanical or electrical person should do electrical, so that your estimate become more accurate. The area an individual has least experience in will generally be having, you know, the highest chance of getting the margin of error. Errors such as including omissions, incorrect product selection, inappropriate use of labor rates, etc. So here in this point, you need some experienced guy. You know, those who are good in estimation, or those who are working like 10 plus experience, 5 plus experience, they know the labor requirement for the to complete the job. And if you are less experienced, you should ask with your, you know, project manager or site engineers for the labor productivity required to install the job. So these are the things. Sometimes you can put high labor rates. It's very important. Sometimes you can select the wrong prices for the wrong items, you know, or you can delete something from the Excel sheet. So you have to be very cautious in these things. And you have to manage your last minute changes effectively. Sometimes, you know, the deadlines are there, and it's required in the last minute changes. You have to do some changes. So you should make your BOQ structure or pricing structure in a well manner, so that you can effectively change your last minute changes. You can manage it. You know, these are the things like you can delete if you are in hurry and you have a deadline. Include the line items or cut case errors. All these it can happen. These are the risks generally associated with the Excel. If you are working on the Excel, it's better, you know, some companies they are using the softwares to you know manage these changes at the last moment. Then at the end, you know, you have to ask a few questions before submitting tender. You have to check which tender did you win in the past and what was the reason. So you have to analyze. Okay, so and you can learn some message from the past projects, and then who were with those and who never wants to to work the projects. some of the clients you are always working, but they are not awarding the projects to you. So you have to identify those clients, and you have to be very cautious. You don't need to waste the time with them, and you need to find why they were not awarding the project to you. Plus, how accurate were your estimates? Did you make the profit you expected? Once you did any project, for example, the project is awarded to you 100 million, okay, and you completed the job in 90 million, so it's a 10 million, so profit. So how you got that 10 million profit, you need to check so that you can apply, and you can, it could be beneficial for you for the future projects. And then, are you more successful in certain industry? Yes, some contractors are specialists in hotel industry, some are specialists in the hospital industry. So if you are making profit in those industry, so you have to take work in those industry again and again, so that it will be profit for you. And in the end, you have to check your works again and again, whether give the work to your superiors or seniors to check the things before submitting the tenders. Thanks a lot. Thanks for listening. If you have any question, you can ask.
Yes, thank you, Mr. I think we can close the sharing now. Yeah. Again, guys, my point is, if you have any questions, please leave them in the chat box, because I have lots of questions. I have questions from all perspectives. I have questions starting from freshers' point of view, from a guy who has 5 years of experience point of view, right? I have mixed questions from me. I hope I'll cover most of your questions, but still, if you have anything, please leave them in chat box. I'll take it from there. Yes. So, Mr. Amar, I have a few questions for you, which I had noted down when we thought of this topic. So, first question was, for example, we have different types of items in a BOQ, right? For example, we have sanitary wares, we have sauna, right? Like this, we have specialty items are there. So now my question is, because as per my experience so far in the MEP industry, particularly sanitary wares, right? I mean, where this will come, and under whose scope this will come? Will it come under the MEP guys, MEP contractor scope, right? Or it will come in the main contractor scope? So what is that exactly in a project?
Sanitary, especially, generally, it's a part of MEP. Okay, it's not part of the civil installation, but it could be vary from project to project. Sometimes main contractor, they are supplying it, but installation by the MEP contractor. But if you see, as per the standard, if you go to BOMI or NRM things, or even if you go to SCSI, the standard specification, you will find the specifications of the sanitary ware in the plumbing section. I think it's division 22 or something. It's part of MEP. It's not part of the civil, but it's vary from project to project. Sometimes they take the supply in their scope and installation in the MEP scope.
Yes, I mean, as I remember in my previous project, which I had done one of the projects in Dubai. So, I mean, the client had come in between. He told me, okay, Samir, let's do one thing. Let's put entirely this scope under main contractor, not in your scope, not MEP scope. So that was like, from me, so eye-opening, because so far I was thinking sanitary wares will come under MEP scope. So that was my question. I mean, is it a practice that it should come in MEP or?
You're right. Actually, the problem sometimes happen like this. The design of the sanitary is not finalized at very initial stage. Okay, they need the sanitary fixtures, but the design is not there. So sometimes it takes time. So that's why they always put this in the MEP side or main contractor side from the client.
Okay, perfect. So moving forward, I have the next question when it comes to like this preparation of these documents. Okay, before, for example, if I am the designer, if I am the consultant, right? So I will, as in your terms, we have something called as pre-tender estimate. So every client want to know what is the budget for the project before he awards to tender, right? Before he shares the project to the contractors, he invites contractors. So my question now is, for example, if I am the consultant, if I am preparing the pre-tender estimate for that project, so what are the things, what are the checkpoints I should consider, I should keep on mind before submitting to the client?
Obviously, there will be the first things you have to check the accuracy. Okay, because at pre-tender estimate generally happen at the technical design stage. As we discussed, the design will be completed. It could be like 100% design is available and BOQ will be available. So at that stage, everything should be perfect and accuracy should be there in the estimate. First of all, it should be accurate. Okay. Then you have to be look the pricing basis, on what basis you are pricing submitting. Okay. Then you have to submit the drawing list to the client. What drawing list you considered for the pricing. Maybe by mistake you put the drawings of the concept stage drawing. You are doing the pre-tender estimate at the detailed design, but you by mistake you put the drawings of the previous stage. So these are the things you have to look. You have to be very cautious. Plus, you have to include the clarifications to the client that what you are including, what you are not including, why you are not including. Sometimes details not available at that stage. You cannot price it. You can put the provisional sums in that for that. So you have to give the clarifications. Okay. Yeah. And one more thing. The pre-tender estimate should match with the client's budget. When they have the budget, okay, based on their business plan and all these. So, for example, if they have the 100 million budget at that time, your cost plan and the final pre-tender estimate should be within that 100 million.
Okay. So again, how does we come to that number? For example, now we are doing the reverse way, right? I mean, we have the number in our mind, and we have to match that number while preparing the estimate. So, I mean, for example, if the budget is exceeding, so what do we do? Shall we remove some services from the MEP side? Or what?
You have to go to the design team. Basically, when we discuss that, we have the 3 stages: stage 2, stage 3, stage 4. Okay, you are making the cost plan at every stage of the project. Okay, and you are updating that cost plan based on the design upgrades. Okay.
Okay.
So once you are in, for example, you are in stage 3. Okay, you are updating your stage 2 plan, cost plan. So you have to talk to the designer. Okay, you have to, and you can do that value engineering at that time. You can ask the designer that our budget is going high because of your design. You have to do some solution. You have to do some value engineering. So this is the efficient design.
Okay, perfect. I mean, coming back to value engineering, I want to say something to our audience. I hope everybody has attended, or some of you have attended the last workshop we had on value engineering. On that workshop, some of you guys has requested the speaker, Mr. Umar Talib, right, for detailed value engineering workshop, where we will take one project as sample, and then we'll do the value engineering for that particular topic. So I requested him, and I'm in touch with him. So that guy is currently busy with his schedule. So, but still, I'm following up with him. Hopefully, we are trying to get that guy probably next month, right? Hopefully, I'll try for this month. If not possible, then we will try to get that guy on next month. So please watch out, guys. I'm trying to tell you that what we are doing is we are trying to take one project as example, and we are going to do value engineering for that topic. So please have an eye on what we are doing. Please, again, we have created WhatsApp groups. Please be active on their groups and just try to see what we are doing. Perfect. So for the next question, Mr. Amar, what I have for you is, okay, now a consultant has submitted his estimate, pre-tender estimate to the client. So we all know, I mean, the client's behavior once we get he receives the tender estimate from your side, from a client side, from a consultant side. I'm sorry. So what is the first question, or what are the few repeatedly asked questions from client when he receives the pre-tender estimate from you, from a consultant? What are the questions?
So there are some questions. Obviously, first of all, they will ask the accuracy, before going, because you are going into the tender stage after that. So they will ask the accuracy, how accurate you are, whether it's as per the final design you are considering. They will check it. Obviously, their advisor or the client team, they will check it. Okay. And maybe they will ask about any provisional sums, whether you included, especially, for example, this the sanitary wares that you told me. Sometimes you have to include these items as a provisional sum because the details not available at that time. So they can ask, any provisional sums there or not, or they will ask any risk and contingency you included, how much you included. These are the things they usually ask.
Okay.
They can discuss about the exclusions also. When you are submitting, you are including the exclusions list. That some items you are not including. coding because of some reason. So they can ask about the exclusion. They can discuss. Try to be more less exclusions in the project, because the more exclusion you will, client will become afraid. Why so much less of the exclusions?
Okay. Now I'm getting one question from the audience on this topic. I mean, he's asking whether we have one particular format when we are submitting to the client for pre-tender estimate. Whether we have any format, or is it company like standards?
That depends upon company. It's not a standardized format. You can make it. Every company, they have their format. They have to, sometimes you can prepare it elemental wise. You have to give all the elements, okay, substructure, superstructure cost, and mechanical service, electrical services, then their consultation fee, then raise contingency. All these you have to list, and you can make format. You can submit it to the client.
Okay. Yes, guys. Please keep asking your questions. I'll take it whenever I'm done with my questions, right? So, yeah, next question for you, Mr. Amar. Like, fine, now we are done with consultant point of view, client point of view. Now, if I am the contractor, if I am receiving the like tender invitation from you, from consultant, so what should be my starting point when I'm receiving, when I'm accepting the tender invitation?
Sorry?
If I'm the contractor, right? I get an invitation from you, from a consultant, right? When I'm accepting the tender invitation from a consultant, what should be the starting point for me?
Okay, when the contractor is, you mean when the contractor start the pricing, right?
Yeah, the moment he receives the tender, the moment he receives, at that time.
Yeah, obviously you have to first check the documents. Documents are available or no. Okay, the form of contract is there or no, the bill of quantity, specifications available or no. Once the management decided to go for the project, to proceed for the project, the estimator generally find out these documents available or no. If something is missing, he has to raise the query to the client to provide these things. Okay, once they receive these things, if it's available, these documents, they have to send inquiries to the market, to the suppliers, to get the latest price. Okay, and meanwhile they can cross check the quantities from the drawings, because the BUP will be there from the client at the time, so they need to do the cross check of the quantities from the drawings, and then you can establish their pricing. You have to price all the items, material, labors, and all these. These are the things they have to do initially.
Okay.
Then after that negotiation, they will submit the tender, they will make the clarification, rates, exclusion, then they will submit the negotiation.
Okay, I mean, good that, okay, now I understood that I have to check the documents first. Okay, I've checked the documents. My management gave a nod to go ahead with the tendering, right? So I'll do everything. So, but for sure, in this MEP world, in this world where we are living, there are good chances that any product price can go high tomorrow, not today, right? The price hike is always there. That fear of hike is always there. So as a contractor, when I'm pricing it, so what should be my strategy so that I'm saving myself and my company in the future because of price hike? What should be my strategy?
So first of all, you need to identify what are the items for this. The price escalations will be there, especially for example copper. Copper prices are always going sometime high, sometime low. It's risky. For that, you have to allow some, as we discussed, contingency. We have to allow some contingency to cover those things, escalation. Not that much high, but for example, if you have a project of 24 months of project, so you can have the previous project experience, or you can have the past 2 years of rates. You can check that how much rate goes up and down in the past 2 years. Then based on that, you can allow some percentage to cover those things, escalations especially.
Okay. I have seen one more thing, Mr. Amar, which is, for example, if I am the contractor, if I am receiving one invitation from a consultant, right? I submit to him and I get rejected for some reason. And again, he sends one more invitation to me. Again, I submit to him. Again, I get rejected. So this keeps happening with some consultants. When I'm the contractor. So again, after a few months, I'll get one more invitation. So when I'm sure that guy will never award a project to me. So how to politely decline that project moving forward? I mean, should we write an email or should we just keep quiet? So what is that we should do as a contractor?
No, you should not keep quiet always. You have to reply them, and you have to reply them in polite way that we are currently loaded with other projects, and you can explain them what is the reason why you are not participating in the tender, and you can just write it. We will try to serve you in next project or something like this. You can politely say, but you should reply it. Don't ignore them.
Okay, perfect. Okay, I mean, okay, now, for example, as a consultant, I receive many tenders from different contractors, right? So I have the budgets with me. So now, as a consultant, what is my first thing to look at when I receive the tender from the contractor? The post, right? The post tender documents which are when I receive from the contractor. What should I look at first as a consultant?
Yeah, first of all, we will obviously everybody wanted to look the price, whether the cost is matching with the their budget or no, or pre-tender estimate. Always they look. Then you have to check the other things like the quality of the work, and then we will ask them documents also, their policies, HSE policy, their financial stability, their technical expertise. These things we have to check apart from the price. Okay, their manpower requirement and all this, and their project experience, what they are doing in the past, what they have done. So these are the things we have to check from the contractor. Then obviously then the price will be there. We have to shortlist few of the contractor. Then we have to negotiate with them.
Okay, perfect. I mean, I have two more questions from my side. For example, if I am a guy who I have 8 years of experience in the MEP industry. So, for example, if I want to pursue this career moving forward, I want to I want to get my experience. I want to start working in this particular platform, in this particular profile. So, if you are taking my interview for this particular profile, maybe you want junior cost estimator, right? Like if you want someone on your team, so what are the three things you look for a guy who should be on your team?
Definitely, if I'm hiring some experienced guy, I will look your technical expertise first. What kind of knowledge you have in the MEP system? If for example, I'm hiring an estimator, I will look his experience, what type of project he has done, and what kind of project profile is having. Obviously, they're technical. Plus, MEP is something like life learning things. So how keen you are in learning the new things. So MEP field is very vast field. So many things are there. Sometimes you are not expert in every field. So I try to find out the guy who is more keen to learn the things.
Okay, perfect. So, okay, I mean, now let's go from fresher's point of view, Mr. Amar. Like, if you want a guy, a fresher, or probably a 1 year or 0 years of experience guy on your team. So first, tell me whether a guy should start his career in this field, or he should start his career in some other profile, maybe like a site engineer or design engineer. But then he should take up this role, or maybe or he can start directly in this role. So what's your advice for a guy who's a fresher and who wants to start his career today in the MEP industry?
The best thing is to take the practical experience first, and the practical experience you can gain it from the site itself. So if you are in the site and you are executing the project as a site engineer, definitely you will be aware of more system, more and more. And once you get the knowledge of the site, you will be having experience on even the small things, the steps in the project. All these things you will be having, and plus you will be having the experience of the different components in the MEP, and plus the coordination experience, what the problems could be arise on the site. These things really help in estimation. Okay. Then after taking some experience, like 4 or 5 years experience, definitely you can move to the MEP planning or consultant side, which will definitely help you.
So basically, we should start from site. I mean, site engineer is recommended, right? That's what you're saying.
Yes, because you will learn a lot of things on the site. You will learn about the labor requirement of all the items. If you are working as a fresher in the office and you don't have the knowledge of the site, you will be guessing, and there will be risk. As we discussed in the risk, you will put some labor, like if 10 minutes is required, you will put like 1 hour for any particular item to install. So these things you will be learning from the site only, that how the labor requirement, the site execution, plus the procedure, what you have to install for the first fix, the second fix, and third fix items, and all this. What is the procedure? What are the priorities? Plus the coordination between mechanical and electrical system. You can see the equipment with your eyes, so you will learn a lot of things from the side.
Yeah, makes sense. So yes, I have a few questions from the audience, Mr. Kumar. First question is, for example, now you have worked on USA projects as well. So like for USA projects, do you have different database for preparing this like estimation, or you are using, or we can use the same database for preparing the estimation?
No. We cannot use the GCC database to US because in US especially the labor cost is very high compared to GCC.
Okay.
So the productivity is very different there in US. Plus the material also, the prices difference are there. So we cannot use the GCC rates there. It's not applicable there.
Okay. So I mean, do you have a reference to start preparing for the USA projects, or how do you do that?
There are things the online you can download. There are a lot of estimation books in the market, like Spons is there. You can download from, I think it's from AECOM company. You can download. These are the global, labor rates and everything. You can apply those things there. Especially for US, you can also download there. Online, you can find a lot of things. Yeah.
Okay. So yes, the next question which is coming out is there any separate format for clients and contractors estimation?
No, there is, obviously. I think you asked this before also, the separate format is there. You mean the tender, right? Estimation format?
Yeah, I believe, I think this guy is asking about separate format for consultant and contractor, I believe. Yes.
So the pricing format will remain the same. You have to include the material, labor, overhead, everything you have to include, whether you are contractor side or whether you are, except maybe some other things will be included from the main contractor side. Okay, but overall, if you see, you can use the same format. There is no change. Maybe the consultant side, generally they include the consultation fees and all this, so that is the different thing.
I think now I have a question, real-time question I think I have. For example, if a design requires smart thermostats, but the customer, the client has no budget for that. So in that case, what we should do? But the authority is telling you to go for smart thermostats. But client is saying no, what we should do in that scenario?
We need to check with the design first. Why it's they are putting it by themselves. It's an over cost, and why client is not accepting. Thermostat, I think, is meaning for the FCU. I think AC thermostat.
Yes. For example, if I add more point on this, Mr. Amar, if a requirement is coming from authority point of view, if authority asking something, you have to put this is mandatory. But that we didn't consider at the design stage. So right now, so what is the situation now? Like, where are we now?
If it's definitely, if it's under the budget, then that's not a problem. They can allow it.
Okay, if it's not, then the variation.
They have to, obviously variation will be there.
That's one thing consultants hate, that word, right? Variation. We hate that word. So yeah, next word is next question. What we have is yes, like once the project is awarded, right, to a MEP contractor. Sometimes during execution, if any design change has come, and that is highlighted by MEP contractor, right? So what is that? Is that a cost saving for the contractor, or is it something which everybody should forget and just do the value engineering without any cost savings given to the client? So what should we do that time?
So the question is the value engineering during the post contract. I think he's trying to ask. Obviously he can propose as per the. I think it's in the FIDIC also, in the contract also. They can propose the saving to the client. If something is there, a value engineering option is there, they can do, but they have to take the approval from the client and consultant. Whether the design is good or not, it should be, it should not be like that. It's rubbish design and they are just proposing, to have some support from the client and something like from the client just to show them that we are doing value engineering. So yes, they can propose it, value engineering, but they have to take the permission from the consultant and client for that.
Okay, even the savings should be, given back, right? Savings.
Savings. Savings they can give.
Okay, we have one more question on the same topic. For example, if we have some service, maybe some low current service, maybe CCTV, for example. Moving forward during execution, we are removing the entire service, right? So only to remove while executing the project,
Yeah.
in design we had CCTV. Suddenly we're descoping it. We are removing the entire CCTV service from the project, right?
Yeah.
Only to reduce the value and the cost. So now, how to handle that descoping? Because if when you talk about lump sum project, right? So how can we know what is the exact price of that particular descoping of that particular service?
So price will be there in the BOQ, obviously. That item is already in the BOQ, and now you are removing. So first of all, you have to prove it to the client. Then why you are removing? You have to take the approval. If they approve it, it will be a negative variation. Obviously,
Mhm.
it will be a negative variation, not the positive variation. But you can remove it. Yeah.
Okay. I think I have one question I have on freelancing. I think Furkan, you can get back to me later on this freelancing thing because this is not the right platform to talk about freelancing. Yeah. So
You
next
can
question.
ask. They can ask. You can connect me on the link, and you can ask anything on the message or
Yes,
something.
please. Yeah. One more thing, what I will suggest all of you is, please feel free to add Mr. Ammar Baik. I'm going to share his link, LinkedIn link of his profile. I believe you have so, if but still the people who are not aware, I'm just trying to share his profile so that you can add him or you can get in touch with him whenever you have any doubts. Yeah. So just give me a second. Yes. So I'm pasting it here on the chat box. Even I'll paste in the WhatsApp. Don't worry. I'll do that. You can take it from there. Yeah, but still I have posted here. Yeah, take it from the chat box, please. Okay, next question I have from Frederick. During post tendering, how we need to consider labor cost, which all MEP contractors are facing problem in labor management during execution.
Yeah, he is concerned about the labor rates. Sometimes you are putting some labor rate, but when you go on the site, in reality, the productivity is very low.
Yeah.
Sometimes.
How do you
Yeah.
feel?
Yeah. So for that, you have to speak with your project manager, and you have to take real time manpower requirement. So that's the best thing you can check, and every company they should have their database based on their past completed project, executed project. They should make some database for that, and based on that they can price that one, the labor and actual labor requirement for any item. But this is based on the experience. Once you do one project, two project, three project, 50 projects, you will know this. Okay, this particular item will require maximum this labor. So in the starting, maybe you will feel like this, something is wrong. But once you are getting experience, you will do it easily.
Perfect. So the next question which is coming, Mr. Amar, is, for example, the online database which you're referring now, right? I mean, that database mostly they will not have cost for each and every item. So the point is, how can we add cost for the item which is not there in the database?
I think the ECOM database, they have almost all the data available. The response book is there. You can find almost all the material. If something is not there, you have to arrange the price from the market. Let's say some item is not there in that book. You have to check the prices from the suppliers. You have to arrange the prices.
Okay, maybe on this point I can say something, Furkan and other guys. So, I mean, let me ask this question. If you agree with me, please say yes in the chat box. Do you want to guys learn more about cost estimating, how to do that? Can we take one service at least, not the entire project? Can we take one service and understand step by step how to do the calculations? What is the, like he talked about three things: material, plant, and labor. So what is material? How to analyze the material cost? How to analyze the labor cost? How to analyze the plant cost? Okay, what are the parameters affecting these particular items, right? So, I mean, do you guys want to know that? If you want to know that, please, write in the LinkedIn so that Mr. Ammar knows, like you and me are interested to learn more about cost planning. So for that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask you one favor. What is that? I'm going to give you one link now. So just go and tell about this experience, this workshop has given you some insights about cost planning and how you are eager to learn more about cost planning, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share with you one link. So please go and write about your experience there. Yes, so I'll be sharing that link in a minute. So please give me a second. So in the meantime, I have one more question to you, Mr. Amar, is, for example, as being a MEP estimation engineer, right, with 3+ years of experience, this guy is asking a question about job opportunity. So, for example, if I have 3+ years of experience in this profile, in the MEP estimation profile, so is it a good time now to change the career, to change the company, given this current situation we are in?
He's from, I don't know, he's from India or from GCC, but in terms of job opportunity, currently the market is good. A lot of new projects coming, and if you are very confident in changing the job, definitely you can change the job. But you need to look for what type of organization you are going, what type of learning you will be getting, what type of profile you are getting. It should be, you know, a good company with some learning experience, so that you can move ahead in your career.
Okay, so Mr. Amar, I have one question on this point. I mean, like, I can see that so many people are showing interest to learn more about cost planning. So as I request all the speakers who are coming on our platform, as I request that, so can I request to you that can you take out some time in the near future, right? Can you take out some time, maybe whatever time you can give us, where we want to learn taking one particular service, maybe HVAC or maybe plumbing or maybe whatever you want to teach us. Can we take one topic and learn detail, madam? When I say detail, I want to know the parameters. For example, I want to understand what are the parameters affecting material cost and labor cost and plant cost. So give us some insights, detailed insights on that. Can we do that if possible, please?
Yeah, surely we will do it, because today's webinar is just an overview. It's not very detailed actually. This field is very vast. There are a lot of things to learn. You have to dig every item, in the MEP to understand the things. We will be having a few more workshops. We can have it based on particular item. For example, if somebody wants to learn the HVAC estimation, so we will be doing the workshop only for HVAC estimation. What are the things required there? What are the systems there in the HVAC? How to price it? How to do the takeoff, especially for freshers? What kind of softwares we can use? What techniques we can apply in Excel? How to make the Excel? How to make the structured BOQ, so that you can manage your final minute changes before submitting the tenders. So all these we can discuss. It's a very vast field, and maybe it will require a lot of time to explain. Obviously, we can do it in the future.
Okay, now my question comes, Mr. Amar. For example, can you give us some idea? For example, if I'm fresher today, right, can we invite freshers for the workshop? Because does it make sense for a fresher to join the workshop and understand something? I mean, I just want to understand, because before I invite freshers who are in the community, does it make sense to do that?
Yes. Obviously, it's very learning thing for them. It will be learning, and they will get some experience. Although, what are the systems in MEP? So they should come and they should learn it. Okay.
Perfect. So now, guys, I have posted one link in the chat box. So please feel free to write about your experience so far. Also, if you want the PDF copy of today's workshop, please leave your email ID there. So what we'll do is our team will take your email IDs and will send the PDF copy of today's workshop to you, to your email ID. Yeah, makes sense? So, yes, Mr. Amar, I believe we are done with the question. I believe we are good. So I have one final question from my side, which is, for example, now, as you know that we have got some idea about MEP cost planning, right? So for today, if I attend your next workshop, maybe if I attend your next workshop, what do you call that, on MEP cost planning. So can I use that workshop to and use those skills on my resume and try to find more opportunities in that profile? I mean, can we do that in the first place?
Yes, you can do it.
You can do that. So in that case, I'm looking forward for that workshop where I can learn something from there and use those skills, learn some skills there in that maybe some other workshop, then write the same thing in my resume and hopefully maybe get a good salary job job.
Yeah, basically, I give the overview about the different MEP systems. So you can write, you learn about the MEP systems, about the basic MEP items like HVAC, firefighting, low current, high current, all these things you can write. Plus the importance of the MEP cost planning. What is the importance and what are the objectives?
Yes.
And you can learn the contractor's point of view, how you did the tender. Pricing and estimation process from the contractor's point of view. So all these skills you can write.
Okay, perfect. So again, guys, I want to highlight one more thing. Please don't leave your email IDs here, because once you leave your email IDs here, I cannot be able to copy that. So please leave your email IDs in the LinkedIn post, which I have posted here again. I pasted the link in the chat box here. Please go to that link and please write your experience, please. Mr. Ammar will feel happy and he will be motivated to come next time and give more time to us to explain more things to us, which will help us in our next interviews, right? In our next career change. So please write some experience. What you felt today, what you have learned today, or at least write few key points what you have learned out of today's workshop. I really appreciate that if you can write something, because end of the day, Mr. Ammar has been very generous to us. He has taken out time to give us time to teach us all these things what he has been saying so far. So please write something what you have felt out of today's workshop in the link what I have shared you just now. I'm sharing it again. Please go there. I really appreciate, guys. If you write something, definitely take my word. I'm going to give you something out of my repository, out of my documents, whatever I have. Definitely, if you write something good about Mr. Ammar, not good, whatever you felt good, whatever you felt out of this workshop, please write that, right? Only to make Mr. Ammar feel happy and to let him come next time and teach us more topics, because he has good knowledge, industry experience, he has vast experience, he has. To be frank, I want to take more knowledge from him. That is my objective. But my point is, why should I take all the knowledge? Why can't we together take it? So that is my plan. So for that reason, please go and write good things. Not good things, your experience so far out of today's workshop. So please write that. I have given the link to you. I'm posting it again in the chat box. So please go there and write. Yes, if you have any questions, please quickly write down that, because the time is already up. So if you have any questions, please write. Imad, what's your question? You can just tell me your question. I'll ask Mr. Ammar.
Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity. Actually, the thing is before proceeding with the construction, we submit some material submittals for the consultant's approval. Okay, so it will be like in the initiation stages of the project. Like when you are in, for example, if you have spent 12 months or 15 months into the project and the price suddenly escalates. So in that case, a letter of intent given to the supplier will help.
You are talking about the construction stage, I think, when you are submitting your submittals to the consultant for the approval and the price escalate, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So price escalations, you have to control the price why it's escalated, and if it's in the budget, what is the question? Can you repeat?
Sir, I mean to ask, for example, we have ordered a long lead material like a fire pump.
Okay.
Okay, during the schedule of the delivery, what price was agreed during the order? It's like while the delivery date is near, it is exceeding more than 30%. So in that case, the letter of intent issued to the supplier while placing the order, will it be binding for the supplier to stick on the same price, or it will be something else?
Yes, they have to stick with the price, because with the price they cannot change. If they are giving you a time period of delivering, this is something like a long lead item generally.
Yes,
sir. About the fire pump, sometimes the chillers are coming from USA and they are giving a time slot of 3 months or 5 months of delivery. So they cannot change the price because they are giving you time. They are not allowed to change the prices. The escalation is not allowed.
Okay, sir. So the point of focus is the letter of intent will save the contractor then.
Yes.
Okay, sir.
Yes, guys. Again, I want to remind nobody. Most of the guys are not writing anything about Mr. Ammar, right? What you have felt. Please, because once you write, about your experience, whatever you felt, then only I can go ahead and ask him, request him to spend more time with us. So in order for me to do that, I want your help. What's your help? What you should do? You should write what you felt like about today's workshop. Please go and do that. I'm sharing the link again with you. So please do that. My only point is we are trying to educate each other on what about industry, about MEP industry in simple words. So for that reason, I want to learn many things from expertise like Mr. Ammar and Mr. Omar Talib. So that's what I want from you, from your side. Please go and write your experience. I have pasted the link again in the chat box. Please do that. So with that said, Mr. Ammar, thank you for joining. Thank you for giving us your time. And I have certainly learned many things. I'm sure many of us have learned many things about cost planning. Again, we are looking forward to learn more things about cost planning. We'll be happy if you can take some time out in the near future and give us that time and educate us more about cost planning so that we can use that particular workshop to hone our skills, to learn more skills, and to try to apply for jobs in that particular profile. So thank you for joining. And if you want to say something, please.
Thanks, Samir, for organizing this. And for those who join, they can contact me anytime. Feel free to contact. If they have something doubt or something, they can email me, or you can contact me on LinkedIn also. I'm ready to help, especially for freshers, those who are looking for a change or jobs or current markets related to anything they want to ask. They can ask me freely. Feel free to contact anytime.
Yes, guys. I have also pinned Mr. Ammar Bike's link in the LinkedIn profile. If you want to check out his profile, please do that. And if you want to add him, please feel free to add Mr. Ammar on LinkedIn itself. Having said, thank you, Mr. Ammar. Thank you for joining. Thank you, everybody, for joining. Hopefully, we'll see you next. The next workshop, we are trying to come up with tender, the topic tender. What are the parameters we should learn about tender? That's going to be our next workshop's topic. So please watch our space. Please try to follow what we are doing if you want to learn more about MEP industries, right? With that said, thank you, Mr. Ammar, joining, and I'll see you in the next workshop.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Recording